I'm going to record that, and I'm going to admit people. And then Darla can
do her thing.
Do what she does.
Alrighty.
Just guys, give you a little heads up.
People are coming into the meeting now, so.
You know what we're gonna mean?
December 28th, 2028 is the next time we'll have to deal with it.
Oh, I see.
We probably won't have the policy
We've got
changed.
some time to fill in that.
So we've got how many years to, yeah.
Christmas will be
I'll be
on.
done with the board maybe more.
Don't say that.
That's a 28.
Don't say that. Okay, wait,
There's no one out there.
okay. All right,
No, it snowed, they all stayed home.
Darla, well, it's 6:48, so.
6:48, all right. All right, we call our meeting to order at 6:48.
We already did that. It's 6 o'clock.
Well, here we
Now
are
we're
again.
just.
According to the agenda, we have to do it again.
Just to clear up,
Yes.
can we call it to order? Because it says here, item 3,
7
call to
PM,
order at
That's
7 PM.
following my agenda.
I know, I'm just asking.
I know.
And then we say, you know, if we get to, not that,
Somebody
probably
call
public
it.
forum and all that will be,
Oh, I see.
I wouldn't want to get down to the public hearing on the proposed amendment at 5 of. Sure.
No, we'll have to wait for that
We
to
can
be
sing,
at 7, but we can do.
Sing
like
carols?
a barbershop quartet.
And we could do our department head roundtable right now, right?
Yep.
Well, I don't think
We could do
there's no one
separate.
here.
Yeah, that's good.
Round table.
Done.
Okay, moving on. Well, we
Sure,
got
there's no
public-
department heads,
We got
right?
public forum, you've got Carl and
We
Dave.
do
here
have
if they want
public forum. So are they?
Did you do the ground rules and all that?
I did not. I have no, and now I'm
That'll-
out of my order
You
now.
can't go
Well, that'll kill some time, we got 11 minutes.
All right. So an overview of our Zoom meeting operation and procedures. For those of you on Zoom, please mute yourself. And if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand or be acknowledged by someone, by myself or someone else on the screen, meeting someone else from the select board. Thanks. Is there anyone here for public forum this evening?
Dave, you see all the fun you're missing out on since you left?
Yes, I miss it already.
Fun, let me put that in quotes there.
By the way, Bristol's doing a really good job. I think the select board and the police department and the road crew is excellent. So you should be commended for running a tight ship.
Thank you, Dave.
What do we have?
We got a lot of cocking. We're patching holes as we go.
So Valerie, I should have also asked, is there anything we need to add to the agenda this evening?
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
Maybe we can do regular business item number 1.
I'm just gonna say that, yeah. Can we- Is it all right if we?
Scott might be intending to attend, and that item.
He's not, he's away.
Oh, okay. All right then.
Is that okay if we do
Good
that?
idea.
All right, so we're gonna skip down to regular business. Item number 1, consider Alyssa Boisel, if I'm saying that correctly, to fill a vacancy on the Lawrence Memorial Library Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Alyssa.
you didn't vote on anything, Joel.
No, I didn't hear it.
We voted Alyssa to the
That's good.
library
Trust me.
trustee.
Yeah, they had a trustee step down, and they'd already interviewed.
We can't
another
start
trustee
until
step
7
down.
o'clock. I'm still saying we can't
Yeah.
start till
It's
7.
regular business. We haven't
We
done
aren't gonna do
anything
the-
that involves the public.
Some of the public might have had a comment.
On Alyssa.
It's true.
I'm just saying.
No, I know.
We can ask them at 7 if they have a comment. If they have a
Okay,
comment.
that's true.
If they show up.
If anybody, because, yeah,
Yeah, but
there's
anyone's
nobody
here.
here, there's nobody online, so maybe they.
Want to jump to accounts payable and liquor license?
There we go.
To what?
Accounts
Accounts payable,
payable.
liquor license.
Sure.
Sure,
We have one liquor license.
Yep.
yeah, for.
We got the class.
Actually, two
class-
liquor licenses, 1 and 3.
Both are the same.
Both for the same. We got
Right.
Class 1, class 3 for Drink Pink,
Yeah.
which is the
Make a-
Bobcat Cafe.
Make a motion to accept the liquor license.
I have one question though. Do they
Second.
ever?
Second, yeah.
Okay. Do they ever serve outside? At one point, they had some tables outside.
Is that their regular liquor license or is that a special
That's the
event?
regular one.
Wouldn't they need an outdoor liquor license or outdoor consumption permit to do that?
They need an outdoor consumption permit. They don't.
I don't believe they do. I think they only
Okay.
serve.
I haven't seen
I haven't
chairs
seen
out
those
there in a
tables since
while.
Been a
COVID.
while, yeah.
And I don't think we're gonna see them for a while.
Unless they get some very large heaters.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we want to approve that, the liquor license?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And what was the number? I don't have that right in front of me for the tables.
46,276.62.
All right.
You wanna do item, 5, 6, 7, 7.5?
I'm never gonna know who I am,
I know, so-
except
Cross them
the, except the resignation of Karen Hahn.
So moved.
Second.
He is moved to take a job in California. His response time will be greatly.
Oh,
Ah,
I
He was a
thought
good
they were- I
firefighter,
didn't know
I'm gonna
where they
miss
were
him.
moving.
Yeah.
He was a good firefighter.
Alright.
so all those in favor?
Aye. Dave has his hand raised. Yes, Dave?
David, what can we help you with?
So what did I miss, the public hearing? That's why I came for. public
We're-
hearing.
We're coming back to
We're
that.
moving around that and waiting till 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You have not
Oh,
missed a
okay.
thing.
Yeah, we haven't missed it yet. We're just jumping around our agenda.
Yeah.
All right.
Trying to, anything that doesn't involve the public, we're voting on now.
Or that probably would not interest the public, rather.
That's right.
Yeah.
Meeting minutes?
Meeting minutes?
I make a motion to accept the November 27th and the June 27th meeting minutes, with
Second.
whatever changes were given, if any.
Come on, I looked them over, I didn't see anything.
I didn't see.
Okay.
Glared at me.
anything. So we have a
Alright.
motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting those minutes?
Aye.
Look at us go.
Thank you.
Can we-
Authorized accounts.
Can we do the 7.4, the one we just had a whole sub conversation about?
It's,
Close, yes, let me do this. So that, with the, so
The
closure of the
Oh,
holiday
yes.
one.
Yep, closure of the, closure on the question of the December 4th holiday and the Bristol personnel policy
So consensus will be
That
Or-
we,
that we would allow.
that we would allow.
we would allow the 22nd to be a half a day's work and a half day's pay.
Yeah.
So a full day
And
of
we will
compensation.
clarify better in the personnel policy.
In
Yes.
the future,
Okay.
yes. So all those in, what, do we have a motion and a second?
We did a
I didn't-
consensus.
just
We
a
might as well
consensus?
do a motion, so
Okay.
I'll move that we,
Okay, I'll do a second.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
And those abstain, or those opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
God, I think we've done everything we can do.
Right?
Can we just race through the budget stuff?
So
We got 5 minutes.
for future reference on the question of the holidays, next year, December 24th is on a Tuesday and,
Right.
and Christmas is on a Wednesday, so.
Jill says 2028 is when we'll be discussing this next.
Okay.
And he said we might have the policy updated by then.
I won't hold my breath, but we might.
It's been 3 years since we started that process.
Item 5, 6, 7, 7.2. We saw that we were questioning the water one, the water budget.
Yeah, you guys saw the invoice, right?
Yeah.
So Val, do you remember why that invoice was taken out of that line item for the water?
I do not know why. Sharon recollected that Joel had made a suggestion that the capital budgets be more refined in categorized, I guess. And maybe that was an effort to be responsive to that, but there's no record that a decision was made to do that. And as I mentioned in my notes, that $5,000 expense was actually budgeted, anticipated in the capital equipment reserve fund, the actual capital fund. So I would propose that be reassigned to that fund and we eliminate that line.
I agree.
Okay.
It makes more sense, yes.
Yeah.
What do you need for that? A motion?
Yes, a motion to approve the water district budget as corrected and amended.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
Opposed?
Okay.
Damn, I'm liking this.
Computer just shut down.
Although that'll be that one and.
There is a sign-in
This
sheet on the
one.
table, if you folks wouldn't mind signing in. Hey, Kevin?
This is gonna be long.
Yeah.
And that budget meeting.
But we're done with anything else?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't think we can take anything else off off our list.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
We got 2
I
minutes.
think we did pretty good.
And now Ian will sing us a song.
Please don't.
Time for
Please
Christmas
don't.
And in
carols.
his ugly Christmas.
I'm actually getting excited.
I can give you a quick TA update.
That's
Yeah, that'd be
great.
great.
Okay.
Okay, just some recaps of things that were accomplished today, which ultimately affected item 3 on the agenda. But the job ads were posted, the treasurer's office and the zoning administrator ads were sent off to Addison Independent and 7 Days today. And they'll be sent off to the more electronic and social media platforms tomorrow.
Great.
Let's see, I sent off a letter of support to the Vermont Family Forests for their grant application for the Seth Hill Waterworks property and the erosion control measures that they are applying for on behalf of the town. So that got done. Let's see, talked to you about the town health officer stuff, and I reached out to Ian and Sharon about, we need to get a town report in line. We need to get that lined up. So this week we really need to reach out and get quotes and figure out what kind of the specs we're looking for this year.
Yeah,
Those are my quick updates.
think about dedication as well.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. 6:59.
6:59.
Yeah, he would be another week.
I'd like to
Before
see
they're done.
Before they're done.
I think that's what they
Wade
said.
bomb dedication. So I'd like to
Okay.
see this year, just a thought.
Okay.
A recommendation.
We can check.
Yep.
We can check previous ones that can, I'll add to the list.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. Let's call our meeting to order. For the third time
Third
today.
time's a charm. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna jump right down to our public hearing. Proposed amendments to Bristol's Unified Development Bylaws. Kevin, is this your moment to shine? Do you wanna come up?
He's just here for comments, right,
Well, yeah.
Kevin?
Are you just here for comments, or do you wanna give a
Brief overview.
brief overview of what's what?
You could say no.
It's really prepared.
You don't have to, Kevin, I wanted to give you the
So do
opportunity.
you have the
The memo?
memo?
Yeah, we have the memo.
Yes.
They can put it up.
Basically, when we did the planning commission hearings, we followed that memo as topics of discussion, if you will. And then open it up at the end for any other general comments.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to thank you and the planning commission and Kevin Logie for all your hard work. How many months has this been, have you been working on this?
2 years.
Okay.
18
Let me change that to years.
At least 18 months.
Okay.
Based on when we started talking about doing it, it's probably been 2 years.
Right.
To go get the grant and
Yeah.
organize a consultant advisor, do
Right.
work.
And the main focus for those watching and those here, a lot of it has been to do with housing.
The grant that we received was limited to the village planning area, which is the traditional planning area plus some of the outskirts. It did include Lover's Lane, the area down on South Street over the hill, and then, up north through Plank Road, Plank Road as well.
Okay.
We had originally had some language in there so we could broaden the scope a little bit, but DCHP, I think it is, their Department of Community Affairs, asked us to remove that because the focus and intent was to look at neighborhoods, walkable neighborhoods and that sort of thing. So it was beyond the scope of what they were interested in and what we ultimately agreed on to look at anything other than the village planning area. And the premise is to make, infill or some of the outlying areas more conducive to housing typical of the higher density areas and what we call the high density residential area, but it's more of a traditional village. If you go from, pretty much east-west up through North Street, Liberty, all those types of areas that we could expand that density out a little bit further.
So when you say Plank Road, so it was everything south of Plank Road if I was heading west out Plank Road, or both sides of the road? And North Street as far as is where?
So the planning area,
Can you show the maps, Val? This one, oh, this one. Maybe I'll show you.
oh yeah, so I got one here, it shows the planning area goes up through past Plank Road up.
Hazel Drive.
Yeah, I think so.
And go
Kind of
to-
like northern boundary up along the mountain on the east, which is pretty hard, pretty easy. And then, like I said, across the bottom is that plateau, across South Street, over pretty much along the cliffs for the old gravel pits on to the west, and then it comes back up around. So that's the village planning area.
So a little bit north. Goes in.
Yeah,
Hazel Drive is way up by the rescue squad, just before the
So
rescue squad.
behind the rescue squad in that area where there's a couple of houses,
That's still RA2.
That's
that's still RA2?
And then the line goes 800 feet west, and then comes back to where it meets 800 feet off of Plank Road.
Okay. Kind of over where the old village goes out.
There's the map. It's hard to see because they're small, but.
Yeah. Further down. It's easier to read. There it is.
Okay, so that's the updated. Okay. And this is all available on the town website. It has been for a while. We've discussed it in, it's been discussed in planning commission meetings. Two main ones in terms of public hearings, and then we have this one this evening. So this is the document. There's multiple documents on the website. This is the one with updated maps, and also there's a document which has highlighted details of the additions and the changes that have been made over the last many months of discussion in terms of the changes to the regulations. And I know other select board members have comments or concerns about the changes.
I'm gonna put up the memo, because that'll be the one that we'll probably want to go through most.
Let's see.
I did have someone from the community just ask me about the application. Will there be changes made to the application as well?
The zoning permit application?
Yes.
We have not changed any of that with this revision of the bylaws. It was a little bit beyond the scope, it was tough enough to get through.
Right.
But there's a lot of discussion, quite frankly, and we've had that topic on our parking lot, if you will. So when we're not meeting this month, taking a breather. And when we come back together in January, now that we've got this done, we've got to figure out something else to do. So we'll be looking at our parking lot. And,
So I'll just share that their main concern was maps that are asked to be given with the application, and how, if there's a scale or not. So there was a question about that, just so you have that to add to your list of things.
yeah. Yeah, I'll have to look at that, because there is a description of what's required. And I think traditionally, and this is my personal opinion, I think traditionally we've been lenient with that information because of the expertise maybe that applicants don't always have.
Understood.
And you're driving a certain amount of cost to have that type of information.
Right.
But
So if it's
I
the
think, I
average,
think the main information on that is setback, make sure you meet the setbacks, that your building envelope is outside of the setbacks.
And it certainly depends on what kind of permit you're applying for.
Yeah. I mean, they require a map, now they require a map showing where the driveway is, where the structure will be.
Like a site plan.
Yeah,
right,
That's good, yeah, I mean, that's all described in,
Mhm.
current regulations.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's beyond the scope of what we were trying to do there.
right, no, understood, I just wanted, it came up recently, and I just wanted to, with this opportunity, I just wanted to pass that on to you.
I could add that it was brought to my attention that the regulations do specify accurate maps, and the application form itself says that it does not need to be drawn to scale. So the regs say to scale, and the application form says not to scale.
So we should fix that then.
Correct, and it's an administrative thing. It doesn't require planning commission or select board action to do that.
I don't think it needs to be to scale as long as the measurements are correct.
Right, that's true.
I mean, they should give measurements on the, because you are, like you said, you are adding quite a cost. If you want drawings to scale,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to hire a professional to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
like if someone wants to add a deck to their house, they may not
Right.
have the expertise to draw something to scale so much, but they can have the correct measurements
Yeah.
written down.
Kevin, was there thought given, I realize what you're trying to infill some of these, I call them back lots of these village houses. Because, Middlebury and Virgins, they all have a septic system, we don't. Was there consideration given for, still septic? You've gotta have a septic design, then you've gotta have a replacement field.
Yeah, so any development currently requires as part of the permit process to have that as submitted as part of the process. You have to have a design septic system as part of your permitting process. I'm not clear on where that has to happen along the line, it has to go in.
You can't add bedrooms without
A wastewater permit.
without a wastewater permit.
Yeah,
Well, you
bathrooms.
could, if you had a permit for 4 bedrooms and your house has 2, you could add 2 bedrooms, either in the house or in another structure and put it in that septic. But if you have 4 bedrooms in your house and you wanna add 2 more in an accessory dwelling, you're gonna have to have a new design, which will include a design and a replacement, and if you don't already have one, it'll include a replacement for your existing dwelling.
So some of the nuances with that is, a lot of, not everything, and particularly when you get outside the core village, but there's some good perk in the village that gives you a lot of flexibility with a lot smaller lot sizes. The other thing we did is Act S100 has a requirement for a lot of housing. They have a lot of housing requirements for where there's public water and sewer, which we have a public sewer system that serves downtown. So we changed the boundary lines on, that is called village business, I think. And so we changed the boundary lines around that district, so it totally encompassed the public sewer system, so that any requirements that came about through S100 that dealt with locations that have sewer and public water, we have it all contained in that one district, as opposed to prior to that, it kind of bled out a little bit into some of the other districts. So we did accommodate that concern about sewage.
Okay. So some of the questions that we've heard in select board meetings, concerns from residents, one of them was in terms of posting of the zoning permit. And I know that's not directly related. This is more sort of informational for Kevin, sort of as they start to review in January. And it was posting of a permit, making those more visible to people. And so hopefully that's gonna be a little bit more work done on that. And I know that we've talked about it in the select board meeting about just having it, is it something that can be on a posted sign?
Like a realtor sign.
Like a realtor sign in front of a building, closer to perhaps a driveway, closer to a sidewalk, so people can see it as opposed to going up to someone's house. And I talked to Adam Logie this afternoon, and he says that that doesn't seem to go against what the state regulations are regarding that, and so he doesn't think we'd have any issues if we chose as a town to say it's required to be on a sign, a post, this distance.
It is awkward to go up and look in someone's window.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta see it first,
Right.
and so you can't see it from Florida either.
Yes.
So my name's Bob Spofford, and I am a very direct abutter to 3436 Garfield Street, and get reminded every single day about how things can go sideways around the whole process. When something's posted in a window and there's all kinds of stuff on the porch, how are you even supposed to know it's there? For starters, I think abutters, especially for a project like that, should be notified, not just like hoping that you're gonna notice that there's a sign in the window.
Well, what we've talked about is purchasing the stands and having the permit posted where it can be seen from the road. Because like you said, if there's stuff on the porch, it's in the window, if the curtains are drawn, I don't drive around looking at people's windows.
But I mean,
I
I don't see why it couldn't be, how many butters generally are there to one property? Why
We've had that discussion
they
too.
can't be notified. And also, I think any permit, I think there should be at least 2 sets of eyes on it and not just one before it gets, granted. Just as a safety valve, so these things don't happen like they've been happening.
We're looking for a zoning administrator if you're not busy.
So I talked to Adam about that, about the letting abutters know, and he recommended not going in that direction just because where is your start point for that? A permit can be for something very small, something very large, an ADU or a garage or any other thing in between. And so, right, a deck. And so do we notify, where do we start the notification process? And that's not to say we wouldn't entertain that, but I think we should have a discussion about that. He seemed to feel that, given his knowledge, it was a difficult path to go down because it's figuring out what would trigger the notification to a neighbor. Part of that is you finding out about it, and I think there can definitely be improvements with that. Having a sign that's visible, that's closer to you in terms of walking and seeing it. The permits are available for public consumption in the main office. And they're posted at least 3 days after a permit is agreed upon, and then you have the 15 days. And we're also looking at having an online version of that, so you could use the town website to be able to look at permits.
But if you're not aware that anything's even happening, that's kind of a.
Well, you would, I guess, yeah, the system is that you're made aware by, if you walk by and you see a permitted sign being put there. But I agree, I think we should have that discussion about being notified. It's nice, but I do understand the complications.
It's pretty hit or miss.
Right.
That you're gonna see it in the window.
Right, and I definitely think we should improve
Yeah.
that, and
We
there doesn't seem to
intend to
be any
improve
issue with us saying we'd like to make this change, because it's at a state level in terms of how the permits are displayed, or where they should be displayed and for how long. So I think we can definitely improve on that.
I don't want to interrupt, but can we get back to what we're supposed to be talking
Sure.
about?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so some of the things that were discussed, there's been a lot updated. When you look through the regulations, it doesn't seem like to be a tremendous amount of stuff, but there has been a lot of work done on this. As Kevin said, a lot of it is for housing, and areas that couldn't necessarily support housing and ADUs can. I had a couple other questions with regard to the ADUs because people have asked me and I had questions too, and some of it's related to other projects that have happened, and there were concerns from the public about that. Some of these are about site plan review versus just permitted. And again, talking to Adam Logie at the Regional Planning Commission, at the state level, the town is not allowed to have it be a site plan review we don't have it currently for housing, and so an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, would also follow what our housing is. So we can't do a site plan review because we don't have a site plan review for housing. There's also discussion about, well, what happens if you put in a garage and an accessory dwelling unit? Those are two different permits, two different uses, but neither of those require site plan review, except for one area, which is village business, I think. I'm looking at Kevin, but I think that's correct. No, I can't do it because I'm sharing. So he sent the two sections from the state statute with regard to that to me, and those could be made available to the public in terms of it being a permitted use now.
So if you build a garage with an apartment over it, it's still 2 permits?
According to Adam, because I asked that exact question, it's 2 permits. It's a permit for the garage, which is, depending on if you're in most of the areas apart from village business, which is the direct downtown area, it's just a permitted use. It doesn't have to have site plan. And if you're doing your ADU in conjunction with that, again, that doesn't need to have site plan either.
It needs a site plan because you have to show your setbacks.
Correct, but it goes through the zoning administrator
Doesn't go through
versus going through anybody else, yes. And the idea is that you're encouraging people to build houses.
Is this the memo that you have up?
Yes.
Okay, can we just go through this, because I know there's people here that want to make comments.
Sure.
So can we just start going through the changes and?
Porter's got her hand up.
Sure. You want to take Porter question, or?
No, I mean, if Porter has a quick question, I was just thinking if we could go through the sections that were changed and let people comment on them, that way we're not jumping all around all over the place, and we could just get through this.
Is that all right with you, Porter, or did you have a general question?
Fine, that's fine, I can ask after you go through it.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the first change? That was the zoning maps that we had already had up. Does anybody have any questions on the changes to the zoning maps?
I just was wondering why they go back over to that Plank Road,
No, I'd have to stop sharing.
it didn't go as far, at least both sides of the road.
It went 800 feet, it went everywhere
to
that, it
North
went
of Plank Road
800 feet
to the west, right?
all
All the
the way,
way
all
to
the way
J
up.
Drive.
all the way to, J Drive.
J Drive.
Okay,
I think it even
Yeah.
goes beyond that.
because that's where, I mean,
You wanna go down?
see, I saw
Is
the
that
blue
way around?
bigger, that's what's confusing me. And I can see where J Drive is, and the blue doesn't go as far as to J.
There's a dark blue and a light blue,
I'm kind of a greenish blue, that like
That
that
green,
turquoise.
turquoise, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, should have brought my laser.
what is that lighter one?
The latter one is village residential.
Yeah.
So the turquoise is.
Those are half acre.
High density residential.
Those are the light blue is 10,000 square feet and the other is half acre. So that goes all the way to the cemetery.
Okay, the half acre goes all the way to the cemetery?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I'm fine with that.
Is that right, Kevin?
that seemed right.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's what it looks like on the map.
he's
So
thinking
the
about it.
darker
Blue, turquoise.
turquoise is, village high density residential, and minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The lighter turquoise, I don't remember off the top of my head, but that particular part of the district is unchanged.
go back down, it says village residential.
Yeah, village residential.
Oh, it doesn't give me the number.
It's changed because that was 2 acres out through there before.
It's still 2 acres, yeah.
No, it's not.
No,
No, the light, so what we did there, the change we made was that we encompassed some of that village residential area into high density residential. So from the crosshatched area, kind of in the center.
Where Pine Street is, that red one,
Yeah,
that one,
right,
yeah.
right there. To the left of that used to be part of village residential, and we moved that into high-density residential.
Mhm.
The other part is unchanged village residential.
Well, the part north of Plank Road there used to be 2 acres.
Well, that might
No,
still be 2
Yeah,
acres.
that's
and that-
still 2 acres there, and then when it
So
goes
the
white,
orange-
it's 5.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the orange up there is 2 acres, or the light yellow, or whatever it is
This
there.
guy.
Right up there.
Of that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay,
And then the other is, I think the other is 1/2 acre.
The light blue,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Okay.
not on here, so
okay.
doesn't tell us exactly. Okay, all right. Any other questions? Dave?
Dave Sharp?
Yes, with regard to mapping, as I've gotten involved in this zoning discussion and talking to people, that one of the concerns that was raised, and I have not studied the maps carefully, and this may not even be in the village area. However, I've been told that we have an RA2 district that's in a flood, at least partially in a flood zone. And the comment was made as we were departing the planning commission hearing about a month ago, was, oh, we don't have to worry about that because, the flood people will take care of that. I think that's not wise planning. If we should not have an RA2 district, we don't want people building houses in flood zones. We've seen this past summer what devastation that causes. So why don't we draw a map that doesn't have an RA2 district in a flood zone?
Well, what would you put it, Dave? I mean, I guess you're gonna have flood zones in certain areas, so you can't just say to somebody, no, you can't build here at all. I mean, they'd have to meet whatever the state guidelines are for it. So I guess I don't know how they would change that.
I think you make it a conservation district or you make it a flood zone and you don't have anything built in it. Look what happened this summer when we had all the flooding we had to people's homes. And now they need state help and federal help and community help to rebuild their homes, which I'm sympathetic to. However, do we want to continue to have more and more residents in flood zones? I don't think so.
Was that a consideration, Kevin, in terms of your
So
meetings?
flood zones are what you call an overlay district.
Yeah.
So you have all the districts laid out for what you have in the discussions on what C2 or RE2 or whatever. And then where all your flood hazard is, which is all FEMA, determined by FEMA, is laid over with another set of regulations.
Okay.
And you can't build in that area, can you?
Within a floodplain, I don't know what the details are, but there is a whole set of different requirements if you are in an overlay part of a district that has, is in the floodplain.
They can build in that, there are certain requirements, like it has to be out of the floodplain, like the first, like again, first floor has to be up and out of the floodplain, so there are requirements. They can build, I mean, look at all the people who build on the beach, on the ocean. Not granted, that's not Vermont, but,
Right,
they do allow it, it's just, they got requirements, state has requirements, or the state, federal have requirements.
But I mean, we could redraw our districts if we so wished to avoid those areas, right?
I think that's hard.
We could look at the overlay and if we wanted to adjust them, we could, or have those discussions. I mean, there's already housing probably in a lot of those areas. So we're then reducing and changing.
So the intent of the overlay district is to apply additional regulation to those zones, irregardless of what.
So when a permit gets submitted.
Whether it's in a conservation district or whatever, it's still gonna be an overlay.
So when that permit gets submitted, that's when they would be,
You'd have to
that's when that
review it.
information would come to the
Right.
permittee?
Right. So it would be all part of the permitting process that would determine.
Thank you, you can have it now.
Yeah, for this.
Okay,
What's next?
All right.
Village
Next.
businesses?
Uses. Any questions about the uses? All right, Tom's gonna say that.
Tom?
Yes, I have my hand up, and I would like to request that the business yard be removed from RA5. Here are my points why that should be. The zoning guidelines for Vermont neighborhoods, I'm going to call them zoning guidelines, on page 29 state that all industrial uses are not permitted in neighborhoods. RA5 is a primarily residential neighborhood. Business yard is an industrial use, and business yard should not be allowed in the RA5 district. Unified Development Regulations, call it UDR, describes the districts CON, HDR, BR, BPC, RA1, RA2, and RA5 as primarily residential neighborhoods. Only RA5 allows business yard as a conditional use. Business yard should not be allowed in the RA5 district. The goal of modifying the UDR is to increase the housing opportunities in Bristol. Permitting an industrial use in a residential neighborhood is counterproductive. Business yard should not be allowed in the RA5 district. The appropriate site for a business yard is in the commercial, call it the C1 district. Business yard should not be allowed in RA5. Permitting a business yard with restrictions is difficult to enforce. Permitting a use with restrictions that are not enforced invites violations. Disallowing conditional use business yard in RA5 does not stifle development. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss the above points. The Planning Commission has stated they wanted to adhere to the zoning guidelines for Vermont neighborhoods in their deliberations. According to the UDR, RA5 is primarily a residential neighborhood. Allowing the use of business yard in a residential neighborhood is disallowed by the zoning guidelines. For the UDR to adhere to the zoning guidelines, business yard should not be allowed in RA5, because RA5 is a neighborhood. The definition of business yard in the UDR is broad and only prohibits the regular or ongoing sale of equipment and materials. Other uses, for example, sorting mineral material, loading and unloading equipment, and storing material, which are often noisy, dusty, and in other ways disruptive to the neighborhood, are not prohibited by the definition of business yard. The UDR does not allow the conditional use business yard in districts described as primarily residential, except for RA5. The definition of districts RA1 and RA2 is similar to the definition of district RA5. The conditional use business yard is not permitted in RA1 and RA2, but is currently permitted in RA5. Conditional use business yard should not be permitted in RA5 to be consistent with the prohibition in RA1 and RA2 and other primarily residential districts. Many people are not going to consider moving to a district that contains a business yard or has the potential to contain a business yard. A business yard has the potential to be noisy, dusty, disruptive, and even dangerous to people living in a residential neighborhood. Most people moving to an RA5 district will desire the character of rural countryside where residential development is compatible with and surrounded by agricultural uses, forest uses, and open space, not an industrial use. According to the currently enforced modified UDR, excuse me, let me read that again. According to the currently enforced unmodified UDR, business yard is a conditional use in the VM, C1, and RA5 districts. The modified UDR, which we're talking about tonight, removes business yard from the VM district. the district C1, VM, REC, VB, and ROC are described by the UDR as primarily commercial, industrial, and mixed districts, but only C1 and RE5 allow business yard. If the modified UDR does not permit business yard in the primarily commercial, industrial, and mixed district, VM, it is unreasonable to have the business yard in RE5, a primarily residential district. One apparent solution to permitting a business yard in an RE5 district is to place restrictions on the permit. This apparent solution has problems with enforcement. The zoning administrator, column ZA, is the individual tasked with enforcing the UDR. It is unreasonable to expect the ZA to police a business yard or permit restricted violations. The ZA does not have the resources to investigate apparent or reported violations, along with other duties the ZA is expected to perform. The best solution to the enforcement problem is to not permit business yard as a conditional use in any district outside of C1. Disallowing business yard as a conditional use in RA5 does not stifle business development in Bristol. The C1 district is available for a business that wants to open a business yard in Bristol. I would argue that operating a business yard in RA5 discourages new businesses from starting up in RA5. There are businesses currently operating in RA5 that benefit from a low noise environment that could be harmed by the noise, dust, and vibration business yards could generate. These businesses welcome visitors who enjoy the rural countryside character of the RA5 district. Other non-tourist related businesses that benefit from low noise environment are, for instance, daycare and electronic recording. So are there any questions to my statement?
I disagree with you, but that's just me.
Okay, so why do you disagree with me?
I disagree with you because to me, we're strongly restricting where somebody can have a business in town. RA5 is about the best place to put a contractor's yard, business yard, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they've redefined the description of that and what they're going to limit and allow. I mean, once they have the permit, yes, there's difficulty in following through, but that's the same thing with a state permit. I mean, any larger business yard needs state permitting, and it's up to the state too to also follow through, and they have problems doing that. I mean, even the definition now where it says anything over, what's it, 15-yard truck or 10-yard truck and a 50 horsepower, piece of equipment, whatever it is. I mean, has to have access to a paved road. I mean, how many paved roads do we have in Bristol that's in RA5? Not very many.
All right.
I mean, you're limiting and you're pushing businesses out of the town. And if you push businesses out of the town, they're taking that and everything with them.
All right, so you are pushing existing businesses out of the RA5 district.
Like what?
Like the Berry Farm. There's the Lower Notch Road Berry Farm. And they cater to tourists and people who come there for the peace of the district and for having a relaxing day with their family. The noise and the dust and the trucks of a business yard are disruptive to that business. There's also a bed and breakfast that is existing on my road, on the Bristol Notch Road, and that business relies on tourism and people coming there to enjoy the peace and quiet of Bristol, of that district. To have a business yard with multiple trucks going by that business discourages people from coming back to that business. So you are discouraging those businesses and potentially other businesses. If you had a daycare, if you wanted to open a daycare in the RA5 district, and had to deal with the noise of a business yard, the clanging and the trucks and the dust, you would have trouble perhaps keeping your children, the children that you're caring for, happy. They may not want to sleep. They might be irritable. It would be disruptive to your business. So to say that it would drive business out of town to prohibit this, I disagree with. I think that is not correct.
But Tom, you're also then asking us to pick one business over another business.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
you're
asking
saying,
you to.
okay, it's okay to have a business that gears towards tourism. I get that. I totally get that, totally understand. But then you're also telling us, okay, if you've lived in town all your life and you have a business here and you want to start a business, you can't do it because you're gonna, we can't have tourism here.
I'm asking you.
Because of your business.
I'm asking you to observe the definitions of the districts. RA5 is primarily a residential district. There is C1, which is a commercial district. If you want to open a business yard, that kind of business, C1 is the appropriate place to do that. And
C1 is a very small district.
If somebody wanted to build an airport in Bristol, there isn't enough room for doing that either. But you have to pick a business that is appropriate for the location.
Okay, we have some other questions.
Yeah.
Who was first in terms of the questions? Sorry.
Tom put his hand.
I know, who's got hands up?
Yeah, just start picking one.
I guess Dave Sharp, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm listening to this and I'm thinking back when I started my business on Meehan Road. I needed to get a letter from the fire department that the location was accessible, and from the select board that traffic wasn't going to be a problem, and support from my neighbors in order to get a permit. I did get a permit. We operated the business for 20 years. I don't think we were particularly disruptive. And I think it was good for the community. My point being, I think capitalism is fantastic, provided that it's well regulated. And one of the things that we need to think about as a community is how do we go through the process of granting a permit to run a business. I don't know, maybe the regulations are already there. I haven't studied that part of the zoning regulations. But I think both of the people that were arguing make good points about we want businesses. We don't want to drive anybody out. We want businesses that fit in the community or in the neighborhood that they're planning to locate. So if we don't have sufficient regulation, we ought to put some somewhere in terms of having some, whether you call it a conditional use permit or some process by which we figure out whether that business fits that location.
Kevin, can you speak to some of the discussions that were had with regard? So there were changes made and business yard was removed from a number of districts. It was kept in RA5. Obviously, Tom's argument is that it's primary residential, but I mean, that's the reason is that for there, it does have a conditional use. It does go before the development review board. Neighbors are allowed to speak to it and attend meetings. But I don't know if you can speak to some of the discussions that you've had with regard to this particular area.
So the RA5 issue that Tom raises was discussed through the process as a result of public comment from Tom. It was brought to a motion and it didn't carry, and I believe that the sense of the people that were opposed to the motion thought it would be overly restrictive to anybody that wanted a business, that type of business. RA5 is a huge area in the town. We did try to seek a compromise by putting a limitation on equipment sizes, which before, with the current regulations, there's no restriction as to what equipment might drive what sort of yard access, that type of thing. So we did look at that. Through the public process, that issue was raised again, and we discussed it again and voted. The motion was made and it didn't carry again. So the plan went forward to the select board with business yards in RA5. We did take it out of village mix. The initial, there was an initial motion to take it out of RA5 and village mixed, and that didn't pass, if you will.
Okay.
And then there was a follow-on motion to take it out of village mixed, which narrowly passed. I think the rationale there was we were increasing the density in that district, and it was sort of a compromise,
Okay.
if you will, for that district.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on that, John?
Yeah, I would only say I think we've given this subject here just now way more consideration than it was given when the Planning Commission added this use to this zone last revision in 2021. That it really was not well considered. There was very little time given to it. It was a suggestion made by the zoning administrator and sort of, yeah, sure, kind of that thing. And I think it does bear more conversation. I should say, by the way, I'm here as my own private resident. Here I am on the Planning Commission and the zoning board. I'm just speaking as a resident myself. But anyway, that decision that added this use wasn't done a long time ago. It was just done a couple of years ago, and it got very little consideration at the Planning Commission level, and that's worth noting. And I would like to hear more rationale for doing that. But I'm just noting that historical thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this?
Do you have any other questions?
People's hands don't say hands. Okay.
I would like to respond to the comment from Kevin about equipment size. All right, if you read the regulation, there is really no limit on equipment size, except that if it's over a limit, big truck and a big excavator, then it has to be on pavement. All right, and that means that those trucks can drive through residential areas and make noise, and they do vibrate the ground when they go by and vibrate houses. And I have heard from a resident of RA5 that would be a reason for not buying a house in the RA5 district. As for VM versus RA5, VM is a commercial district, and you pulled business yard out of VM, a commercial district, but you left it in RA5, a residential district. And that seems very inconsistent to me.
I mean, part of this I look at, okay, so somebody's building a house up there, our town trucks go up through there to do maintenance. I mean, you have trucks going through there all the time. I mean, I understand that there may be more when you have a business yard there, but like, trucks go down our road all the time. I hear them, and I'm not right next to the road, but to me, that's just part of living in anywhere, I mean,
it's not just that trucks go by, it's that if you have a business yard, there can be very many trucks go by in a given day.
Yeah, I mean, I live here in the village, and I live on a corner lot not far from Martin's Hardware. I have trucks that go by every day, go down to Pine Street to deliver. I understand what you're saying, I understand your concern, and I'm not empathetic, but like Michelle said, I see that as part of living in this community, I hear fire trucks go out, I hear, the police go by every day at different times, there's ambulance, there's construction, there's trucks, there's the telephone company is by pretty much every day. It's part of the fabric of our village. I understand what you're saying, and again, I want you to understand that I'm hearing you. My experience in living in the village, and I've been here over 30 years now, there's trucks on every street I've lived on.
There are trucks. There are trucks, and I would bet you that not many of them weigh 50,000 pounds. And in a business yard, it would not be unusual to see many 50,000-pound trucks going by in a day.
Well, with this description, with this definition, it says business yards with heavy equipment, 10-yard or larger dump trucks and 95 horsepower or larger excavators or similar shall be sited with direct access to the paved road. I personally think that's very restrictive, because 90% of our roads are dirt and don't have direct access to a paved road. So you're not gonna find, if this goes through and we don't change this, you're not gonna find too many businesses in RA5 that are the one that you guys are dealing with up on your way that seems to be.
Yeah, I hear you too, but I also run a business that deals with those heavy trucks every day. And I don't put anywhere near the trucks on the road that the farm next to me does. And they run pretty much 24/7, 365 days a year. And they run through all residential areas as well. They run up on Meehan Road, they run on Burpee Road, they run Hardscrabble Road.
They come right through the light down North Street and right over South Street.
So
right for the notch.
I get it, but we can't eliminate trucks. I understand this is on, your emphasis is on the yard, but we can't eliminate the trucks. We need them to do what we do in this community.
And we need them to service the people in our community.
I would argue that they do not, that the number of trucks that I have been experiencing do not service the people in this community. They service people in many communities.
That's business.
That's a fair statement.
Yes, and that's business.
I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just meant to add earlier, and I think the subsequent little bit of conversation teases it out some more, but the issue is maybe not so much do we allow business yard or not, but what activities we're allowing there. Zoning is about protecting established interests, right? And encouraging the things we want in town, and that's very well established in both the town plan. And Bristol, long ago chose a primarily residential core kind of model to follow. That was a very deliberate choice. But I think that what I wanted to add was that, I think this definition is still too loose for my liking. I think if we could define business yard in a way so that essentially industrial impacts are not included, then probably we could all live with that.
Not all.
I don't think it's defined that way now. I think it's has a lot of loophole potential in there now.
I personally would like to strike that last sentence, but you had a different definition, Kevin, before, right? Before they changed this.
That
last sentence is different.
The last sentence or two, the sentence about garbage trucks wasn't in there. The sentence about driving larger equipment to paved roads wasn't in there.
Right.
And also the wholesale or retail sale of equipment wasn't in there.
So you have refined it quite a bit then.
Yeah.
And it's all over two businesses, not over a number of stuff. And the garbage is a moot point now because that business has been sold.
Yeah, there's a little bit of tunnel vision here.
The other thing I would say is that, you know, in my mind, you can be more restrictive having a contractor's lot on 5 acres than you could on 2, because you're gonna encroach on the boundaries depending on what the size of the property is. So I can understand why they might have wanted to move it to RA5 to be able to isolate the yard itself from the neighbors. You could be more restrictive there.
Well, and then even if they have a business yard in an RA5, they have to go through Development Review Board, which then has the capability of putting restrictions on.
Right, it's a conditional.
It's, you know, which
As
is
a time of day to come in, you can't go out.
It's not a by right use.
noise, right, it's
And
not.
how are you going to enforce those regulations?
Tom, the same way you would, the state enforces their regulations as best you can. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
My
And I
point
understand
exactly.
it's a frustration. It's a frustration with me with the state when I have somebody who's behind me who has a gravel pit and they don't do anything about it, you know, but I don't really have an answer for you on that. I mean, other than we can only do the best we can.
Well, I think this is an opportunity to do a better job. Remember, anybody who's got a permit out now will not be affected by changing the UDR at this point. This would only be going forward.
Now, I understand that. I totally understand that.
Okay, and that I have to come back to this again, that this is a residential neighborhood, this is a neighborhood, okay? We have a community here, and it's not an industrial or a commercial district. It is a residential district. VM, which was a commercial district, had business yard removed from that district.
Okay.
And I think that it would be very consistent to do that for RA5.
Thank you, Tom, for all of those comments. Clearly, you spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we appreciate your input.
Okay, I'm going to make one more input. I'm going to email to each of you my comments, and I have some questions on the back that I would like you to ponder.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We'll look for those.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to share that document again, and we can go through the next
Yeah, let's see what we
couple?
got.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, so we just concluded uses. We're down to
Village business
Village
district, residential office, commercial. These are just the different districts.
right. Just wondering, are there any questions about C? Item C?
Dave?
Thank you. So mine's actually probably in B too, but I didn't want to mix it up with the business yard discussion. And
Sure.
that is Airbnbs. So
Yeah.
their the overall idea, as I understand it, for what the state has been doing and what these regulations are supposed to accommodate is encouraging more housing and so we can grow our businesses and bring get people into houses. So
David, interrupt David for just a second. A couple people in the chat have asked, could you speak up a little louder?
Oh, okay, I will try. Sure. So, so the housing is the issue, and one of the problems statewide, and I think in Bristol, is that what might be long-term rental housing for families in our community are Airbnbs instead, and they're short-term rentals, and this conversion of traditional long-term housing to Airbnbs is a concern. So as I understand it, they're not addressed at all in these zoning proposal. Despite the fact that it's supposed to deal with housing and maybe generate some more housing. So I think there ought to be some sort of regulation, and I understand that, a number of people on the planning commission have Airbnbs, and maybe that's why they were reluctant to deal with them. But they need to have regulation, and we ought to have something in there that talks about Airbnbs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think the state has a hard time dealing with Airbnb, so they haven't mandated that yet.
Other towns and cities are setting their own
They're starting,
regulations,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Jeff, I said, full disclosure, I used to be on the planning commission and I was involved in this process.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I think, I don't know if there's been a process, we actually don't know how many Airbnbs there are.
I was just gonna ask that, so I don't think there's any way to know that.
Kevin was saying, well, what's the planning commission gonna do now? Well, I have a suggestion, Kevin, that somebody might try to do a survey and find out how many Airbnbs there are, what of them are day. There's different Airbnbs, so if someone's renting a room in their house, it's not removing housing from the
Or if it's
market.
seasonal.
If they're renting out an entire house, then yes, it does, but we don't know if that's 2%, 5%, 10%, we have no idea.
Yeah.
Whether that's minimal or a major impact. So I think before writing regulations, find out what the actual situation is. It's a little challenging to do maybe, but you go on Airbnb and count.
Right.
Or VRBO, because it's
Yeah,
not just gonna be on Airbnb.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The short-term rental, so.
I mean, I know there happened to be one down here on East Street that was an Airbnb, but now it's been converted to a, single-family residence,
Yeah, so
residential.
I would think knowledge base would be important before doing anything else, and that would be a useful task.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good suggestion.
It's a glaring omission that we regulate single-family homes, we regulate multi-family homes, we regulate inns and guest facilities, we regulate businesses, with the exception of Airbnb businesses. I mean, why do they get a buy?
Another question, Matthew?
Yeah, sorry, Matt Davis, Lower Notch Road. On the Airbnb piece, there's really no such thing as a quote unquote Airbnb. Airbnb is a software company. There's property owners that use platform and other platforms for renting their properties, whether it's a second home, whether it's an accessory dwelling unit, whatever it may be. I get that this is a semantic issue, but I think it's relevant. I would argue that there is a way that the town regulates short-term rentals. When I operate one, and when I went to the zoning administrator now 6 or 7 years ago and said, this is what we're trying to do with our accessory dwelling unit, he said, well, that sounds like a bed and breakfast. So that's what we got a conditional use permit for through the DRB to be able to do on our property. So I don't know. I think I attended several of these planning commission meetings and this kept coming up. And I think the take home was that there didn't really seem to be much need to regulate something that wasn't an issue in Bristol. I mean, if you're dealing with Warren or Waitsfield, Stowe, I think it's a different matter, but there was no one coming to the planning commission saying, wow, these Airbnbs are really taking, or these short-term rentals are taking a lot of long-term housing away. I don't see it as an issue in Bristol personally, but I think that's another kind of fact-finding thing that whether it's the select board or the planning commission could certainly engage in. And I mean, it's at this point, there's software companies that do the same thing. They're out there tracking bed and breakfast, they're tracking short-term rentals. I think it's a technical issue more than anything, but I think certainly it's something worth considering. But there wasn't a lot of folks coming to the planning commission meetings saying that this seemed like a big deal. And I'll lower my hand at this point.
Thanks, Matthew.
Okay.
Anyone else?
We on D?
We are. Any questions on the residential office commercial district, item D? Questions or comments? Okay, moving on to E, village mixed district. Okay, moving on. High density residential district, F. And then on to G, village residential district. And that moves us on to Article 4, required regulations.
We don't have Article 4 up there either.
It's number 2, yeah.
Oh, number
number
2,
two.
sorry.
Article 4.
Number 2,
Oh,
Article 4.
okay,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
What page you
On
Page number 3.
3 of 3, yep.
Oh, 3 of 3.
And then number 3, Article.
Hold on.
What,
We have
question?
one. Porter?
So is this the AD, are we talking about the ADU section here? I can't scroll down on.
Accessory dwelling.
Yes,
Yep.
Yeah.
ADU.
So I guess I have a question and I don't really know if this is exactly the right place for it. So, I could go now or I could wait till you're done and then pop in.
Go now.
Go ahead.
So I really like the idea that that we're trying to streamline ADUs because there's a huge demand for housing, and you know, it was certainly something that came up in the ARPA you know, surveys, and I know that it's a statewide issue. So I appreciate that, but you know, as a resident of Garfield Street, I am really concerned about the idea of an ADU plus something else. And I feel like there really does need to be more oversight. So if the state's saying, you know, ADUs, there can't be any other type of review or oversight, then we need to talk to them about if we have two things together, like a garage and an ADU, that there's going to be that, because all that language about ADUs, about, you know, subordinate to the structure, et cetera, once you combine it with something else, it's naturally going to get bigger. And if there's not going to be oversight, that's a problem. And, you know, I live on Garfield Street, so you know where I'm coming from here. But my concern is, like, you know, we as residents in the town, we trust our fellow community members who are on boards to, you know, pass regs that are going to protect us. And then we count on our town staff, like the zoning administrator, to apply those rules. And when we get into a situation where, you know, a landowner is not served well by the, you know, the guidance that they got, and the neighbors are really, really negatively impacted, we need to be careful that we don't do that again. And so you know, I'm not an expert in this. I tried to read through these, but I'm not seeing that. And I hope that that will be addressed. And I hope that the answer is not going to be like, oh, well, state rules, we can't regulate an ADU. Like, there's got to be more to it than that. So I'm just looking for how that can be addressed, and hoping that you're going to say, yeah, we're gonna make sure that that we create rules that we apply as we created, and that we enforce them, and that it's gonna be good for everybody.
So Porter, can I ask you, when you say oversight, like, I mean, we can't regulate ADUs in like what it looks like in that. The only thing we can regulate is basically size and setbacks and,
Yeah.
you know, like in this case, it's, you know, they've created the definition. So is that what you're talking about, or?
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't know, because this isn't,
Yeah.
I'm not on this committee and this is not my knowledge area. But if the state says you can't regulate an ADU, then I want to know, what can we do to protect the neighboring community and to make sure that the intention, because I think that the intention here is good. I get it. We want more housing. And We also want to make sure, and I mean, I feel like the planning commission went to effort to have language in there about, subordinate to the primary structure. And so, there's got to be a way to do it. I don't know what your answer is, but I'm not comfortable with the answer that is, oh, well, we can't. Like, if we care about the community, because then what we do is we create this loophole where we just say to people like, you know what? We can't regulate this and we can't regulate that. Put them together and now we have an unregulated free-for-all. And that's just not okay.
Kevin, did you want to speak to any of that, or do you have any comment?
So the enabling acts for planning are quite clear that single-family dwellings and now duplexes are permitted uses, and if they comply with the setback requirements and the density requirements that are laid out for that district, they're permitted. Along with that is the concept of an ADU. And if an ADU is put into the living dwelling unit or an accessory building that follows all of the setback and density requirements, wastewater requirements, it also is a permitted use. The issue on Garfield Street is not a clear-cut ADU and single-family dwelling. There's all sorts of things that happen there that are confusing the issue with ADUs. And you got hands up all over the place.
Yes.
Well, I guess just if we can follow up on this. So I want to separate these two things because, as was pointed out earlier, that already happened. So, and I'm not sure it's that complicated, but not to go backwards to that. So just want to make sure I'm understanding. The ADU is a permitted use. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And
it has been a permitted use. It's in the current regulations, it's a permitted use, and in the new regulations, it stays the same. It's a permitted use.
It just has different restrictions or
Correct.
requirements in the new regulations.
okay, great. And you're saying that other outbuildings or structures are also permitted?
Correct. It's accessory building or accessory use. That's what it's called.
Okay. So when you put them together, we have a new thing going on. It's
No,
like algebra.
They're two separate things.
No, A plus B equals C.
They're two separate things according to the permits. You get
But
a
not
permit
according to our regulations as they stand now.
Yes, it is. If somebody puts a
Because
garage,
if you look at the definition for accessory structure, it says it cannot include a dwelling. So there's a problem.
Okay. John, I need you to wait to be.
And
John,
the state.
I need you to wait to be recognized to speak,
Yes,
okay?
I'm
We
sorry.
were already answering a question. So I appreciate your input and we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
So-
I will stop talking and I'll step out. I guess what I'm asking you guys to tell me is not just, oh, well, that's the way it is. I'm saying, I feel like we need something more. And I'm just curious, has anybody asked this question? Because just because it's a permanent.
I talked to Adam Logie. He says the state regulations do not allow for site plan review of accessory dwelling, an ADU.
Even if it's lumped in with something else. Did they ask that question?
you asked about the garage.
I asked about the two separate things. My question to him this afternoon was, what happens if it's a garage and it's an ADU, and they're two separate permits?
They can be one building, but they're two separate permits.
And the ADU would still have to comply with the definition.
They both have to comply to the
Right.
to the definitions of in our zoning regulations.
Is Adam citing something there?
In terms of the two different permits,
His basis for that judgment?
I think According to him, it's his knowledge of our town regulations.
In the States.
He's not
Well, the
citing
state's-
state statute?
No, state statute is for the not being able to put site plan review on ADUs. It's a permitted use only. The same with accessory buildings.
I have some questions, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
Okay.
Always had her hand up for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, let somebody else go
Yeah.
first, then I-
Oh, Val.
Val.
Sorry, Val. You're muted, Val.
Oh, you're
She's
muted.
working on it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to find the button. The only way that I understand is an option in Bristol is if the town was to adopt a historic preservation overlay district that affects the areas that you're concerned about. That way you can apply design review standards. But right now that's only limited to a certain part of the village, so that it's limited that way. But you could choose to adopt a broader historic preservation district. And
Yeah, but that limits a lot of what people
Yeah.
can do.
Sure, I mean, that's a trade-off for sure, but
Yeah.
that is a potential option.
John.
Yeah, so the states that the Home Act talks about ADUs, period. Not ADU plus garage or anything else. It talks about ADUs, and if an ADU is part of an existing house, you build out part of your house as an ADU, then the state statute applies. If you have an existing garage or something, an outbuilding like that, and you want to turn it into an ADU or add an ADU to it, the state statute trumps there too. But Bristol's regulations are very clear, and you can't ignore the word new in them, because it talks about when somebody wants to build a new structure, that is both an ADU and say a garage or a workshop, then it is a new animal. And the state statute is silent on that. So with that preface, I do have a statement I'd rather read that'll help me keep to the point here, if you don't mind. It's a couple of minutes.
Sure.
I'm on both the Planning Commission and the Development Review Board, but I'm here tonight representing myself only as a Bristol resident. I'm asking the Select Board to support a proposal I made to the Planning Commission, but which did not carry the day there, as Kevin recounted earlier. I regard Section 404 governing accessory dwelling units. I'm asking you in this proposed zoning revision to restore the language of the 2017 bylaws in Section 404. This would close a huge loophole opened when that language was removed in the last revision a couple of years ago, our now current zoning rules. Restoring that language would prevent another disaster like 3436 Garfield Street. That project represents a total failure of Bristol zoning rules that left no one happy. The owner now has a building he can't use as he hoped, which he might have done differently with better guidance from the town, and neighbors in their longtime homes feel violated and that their interests were not protected by the town. And I can't imagine that you all on the Select Board are pleased with all of this either. I'm not here trying now to parse out how it happened. That's a different story. Let's focus here on how to keep Garfield Street from happening again all over the village. Let's have more ADUs. As Porter said, I support that, but let's help them fit in. The 2017 language of Section 404 or something close like it would do that. It says, in essence, that when a property owner proposes a new building that has two new uses, a garage and a workshop and an ADU, not just one or just the other, then that project is subject to conditional use review. The 2017 regs made an assumption, a proper one, I believe, that one new building combining two new uses is likely to have more impact on neighbors. It'll be a larger building, for example, or a taller building. It'll have people living there with the obvious potential light, noise, parking, and privacy impacts that go along with residency. It's infill development. This assumption in the 2017 language of Section 404, Makes perfect sense. That's why it was there in the first place. But without that language in there, as the regs stand now, I'm sorry, there's no guidance when an owner wants to build a new building that is both an accessory structure and an ADU. It's a huge loophole. If the 2017 language had remained in force for 3436 Garfield Street, it is easy to see how the disaster would have been prevented, assuming, of course, that all the rules were applied properly, which they were not, but that's another story. The 2017 version of the bylaws offered a way forward in such an instance that also made perfect sense. If the owner goes through conditional use review, considers potential impacts on neighbors, and builds accordingly, he might have his project. And the 2017 language offered a process where the neighbors get a voice and a chance to be heard. That process would not likely have stopped the owner from building. It would have encouraged him, though, to make it fit better and have less impact on the neighbors. In this round of revisions, with the lessons of 3436 Garfield Street fresh in mind, I advocated on the Planning Commission for closing that obvious loophole. My motions to restore the full 2017 language were defeated. Okay. I'm hoping you might consider adding that back in. My understanding right now is currently the way it's being handled in Bristol is the zoning administrator is advising the applicants for such projects to build the whole building out, but call it just a garage, just get that permit first. And then once it's an existing garage, using the state sort of trump to go ahead and apply for and build out the ADU. That might be a handy bureaucratic accommodation, but it does not make the impact of such a project go away. Really, it seems like an end run, avoiding the question of potential impact of such a combination project. So I hope you will consider putting that language back in. I must end by noting that if you read it, and I'll send it to you if you don't have it, this language would actually make Bristol's regulations more permissive than the Home Act. Where the Home Act says there's a dead end if, for example, you have a duplex. This language, if we add it back in, would say, well, okay, you have a duplex, but if you go through conditional use, maybe you can have an ADU too. And I think that's more permissive, and that's something we should welcome. And as long as a project like that fits in well and has the neighbors have a chance to comment on it, then we could see our way through to that. That is more permissive than the state. So I hope you'll seriously consider it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
Thank you, John.
Okay, anyone else? Are there any other
I have a
hands?
question here.
Yes, thank
Two
you.
questions.
I knew there was a
Sure.
hand somewhere.
Permit. And I'm looking at the line in, line out on the actual UBR. And 3A, so my understanding was previous regulation for Bristol was 30% of the area of the main building or 1,000 square feet. The new one has reduced the 1,000 to 900, which is making it more restrictive, not less restrictive. Is there a reason for making it more restrictive?
My recollection is we chose to go back and use the verbiage from the state regulation verbatim.
But the state regulation is a floor. You have to, at minimum, do that.
At minimum,
So it's not a ceiling, so 1,000, why drop it down? It's just.
So the state is 900 square feet or 30% of.
Right, but that's a floor. And we were above that, and now we've dropped it.
Yeah.
So that seems to go against the point.
There was a discussion and we decided to go back to what the state minimums were.
Is 1,000 deemed too big? It's not a very large space, 1,000 square feet. Well, I'm trying to understand. I would say, why not leave it at 1,000?
But it wasn't, so, I mean,
You know,
you could revisit that, I suppose.
The second question I have is, sub 3D says new construction of an ADU shall have a height of at least 20% less than the main structure. My question there is, what if the main structure is a single-story home? If you make it 20% less, aren't you gonna have 6-foot ceilings and you're?
We'll have a home for midgets.
Yeah, well,
I would be fine.
I can understand if it's 2-story, sure, but a 1-story, then it's just gonna be not feasible. I don't see how anyone with a 1-story can realistically have an ADU then. I don't know if that was considered in this language, or?
I remember some discussion about single family or single story buildings at the time that was put in there. I think there's more than one thing there that we were trying to demonstrate what would be what's the term? Less than or not as
Subordinate.
Subordinate, there you go.
No, I understand
Subordinate to
that.
the main. So that was one way we chose to do it, recognizing that it may limit certain situations.
Couldn't you put something in, to put an exception or make it different for single story homes, 1-story homes? I don't even want to make it more complicated, but it just seems unfair. It shouldn't, it's really not feasible, as far as I can see.
Right.
It's just my comment
Yeah.
on that. I thought it doesn't work for, I understand the intent, totally. But the impact on someone with I'm about to build a single-family home, a single-story home, not intending to put an ADU.
Right.
I can see how it would be very difficult to do.
Couldn't you just go with the maximum height as opposed to a percentage?
That's what's there now, I think it's 35 feet, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, like,
For certain areas.
like you said, you could make an exception and say, except for, you know.
One-story
One-story houses, then,
Where
It
can't
can
be greater
equal.
than the
right,
height
then they can
of a
equal.
one-story house or something like
Okay.
that. I would think that would be reasonable.
Yeah.
Sounds like it would be.
And both in line.
Yeah, given the number of single-story houses we have in Bristol.
We have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would fit both the intent
Yeah,
of this, but it would still keep a restriction.
right,
So.
okay.
To follow up on his
Thank you.
question or comment there, like, you know where I live, Kevin, I have a shop upstairs and my garage has 11-foot ceilings in there. My garage is taller than my house. So if I wanted to take it and say, well, I'm gonna put the girls up there in the apartment, I had the garage now for 25, 30 years. Could I put an apartment up there now, but it's higher than the house?
So you meet all those setback requirements?
Yep.
Yeah, you can do that.
Even though it's,
It's existing.
The thing is, this, you're building.
This says new construction.
Yeah, this is yours is pre-existing.
and then I would meet those and the neighbors wouldn't have to know until after I get it built, and they're going, boy, you got a
So
lot of traffic.
they would
You
have,
put your permit
and
sign
you
up.
go
there.
through a permit process.
Because you gotta change the use.
Okay, back to that question with, that's why I proposed a couple of 3 or month ago, is I hope we get the stands, like the real estate sign stands out there so you can see them. So,
I think we're gonna work on that.
yeah. I have to go use the.
Any other questions on this article?
Jill, your comment, it's in regards to 20% lower than the existing house, so there is a reference to height there.
Thank God I don't live in Bristol because my shop is way bigger than my house.
All right, so now we're on to, what is it, number 3, articles and definitions.
We're not gonna rehash number A. We've already done
We've already
that.
done that. Anything on B, on hotel, inns, guest facilities?
Why was that changed to conditional versus permitted? It got moved. I was just curious.
For the inn and guest
Hotels.
facility.
Yeah.
I think it was so that there would be a discussion to demonstrate
That they
how
had somebody
you're
present?
covering things, how
Okay,
your coverage is.
okay. All right. John, you have a question?
Yeah, really just, oh, am I muted here? 1 second, sorry.
No, you're
No,
good.
you're good.
Okay, sorry. Got different windows open here. Yeah, again, just as a resident of Bristol, regarding the definition of inn and guest facility, I would please urge you to keep the requirement, at least in the village business zone, that an inn guest facility be owner occupied. That's how it's been for a long time here. It seems to have worked just fine. Our downtown is meant to be a mix of full-time residents and businesses and what have you. And I think an inn owner be occupant is a good idea. I can't help but notice that this change was proposed by one property owner who happens to own the inn in town. That owner is currently, and for some time has been, not in compliance with the current regulations, and that this change would bring them into compliance like a golden ticket. That owner testified that eliminating the requirement would make it easier to sell the business, which is fine, but worth noting. And clearly, earlier planners thought it was wise to require owner occupancy, and I would ask you to support that. I think if Bristol just gives these golden tickets away like this, oh, you're not in compliance, but now we'll change the rules for you. That doesn't say much about our zoning regime here in Bristol and how seriously it might better be taken. And so I just hope that you wouldn't send that message largely, but also just think about the neighbors and the benefits of having owner occupancy, at least in the tight downtown area, and require owner occupancy. Thank you.
What would be your concerns if it wasn't owner occupied? If it was owned by someone else who didn't live there?
Hilton or Ramada or somebody else, I don't know. I mean, I would think that somebody who lives there is inherently more attuned to the climate and culture of our very unique and beloved Main Street, and have more of a stake in keeping it in a way that would benefit the whole community. I think that owner occupancy does that, and our town plan talks about wanting to keep our downtown available for occupied with full-time residents like myself who live right downtown on and above Main Street. And this is an opportunity in a building that is, sort of naturally an inn, in which I'm glad is in town. It's a great business to have in town. But I think this is an opportunity to, if people, for example, are concerned about short-term housing and stuff, this is a way to keep at least one unit in a building anchored to its owner occupier. So I think there's a lot of things that recommend it, and I hope you will keep it.
Okay, thanks, John.
So any last comments before we put this to bed?
We'll have our discussion.
We have that discussion.
Right. But this, I'm sorry, I was talking about this portion.
Yeah, the public input.
Yeah. Not hearing any other questions. Kevin, anything you want to sum up with?
Nope.
He's good. All right. Well, thanks again, Kevin, for your work and the work of everyone else on your committee. Clearly, you guys have done a lot of work, and the fact that you can pull things out of your brain the way you did tonight is impressive. Thank you.
Some of it's real.
Didn't even make it up, huh?
I think so. Val?
Yeah.
I just want to note that the select board is having another public hearing on this topic next Monday. And I would recommend that the select board wait to hear more comments that might come from that discussion, and then deliberate on any kind of adjustments you may or may not want to consider going forward. I also want to let you know that, just to update some information, that the period of performance for the project, the grant funded project, in order to qualify for the forgiveness of the 10% match, the select board actually has until the end of January. So there's not the time pressure to have it done by the end of this month. So if you need to take some extra time to consider things, And as we know, that if the select board does choose to make any substantive changes, that another public hearing must be held to consider those substantive changes, and the planning commission needs to be provided with an opportunity to comment on that.
How do you define substantive, that word
Additions,
change?
deletions.
Now I know I have a list, right?
Like if you change a definition, if you add something in, that's.
Change of meaning.
Aside from grammar and
Spelling.
So pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Well, there can be some clarifying things. For example, in the earlier discussion about scale, the select board could choose to add language in the ordinance or the regulations that like parentheses, and clarify, accurate measurements or something, to clarify that it doesn't need to be on a surveyed map. But to clarify that it can just be, an accurate depiction or something, to clarify, but that wouldn't be a substantive change.
So if we were to put like an exception for a single family residence on an ADU, would that be considered substantive? To me, that's kind of a clarification, but it's probably more substantive than clarification.
I'd have to think about that.
Okay, and then obviously this comes before us, we make any changes if we have any, and then it goes before the voters in March.
Goes back to the planning commission.
Right.
Have another hearing.
Yes.
It doesn't have to go back to planning commission.
They have to be able to comment on our changes. Yes.
If you have any. Yeah.
If we have changes.
I thought we had.
They don't have to have a hearing. They have to be able to comment on our changes.
They get to respond.
They get to respond to.
And their regular meetings the regular meeting is the first Tuesday of the month, and then they have an option to meet on the third Tuesday if needed.
Okay. And then so once it goes through that, if the planning commission or at least responds to that, then it goes before the voters in March.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, then if the select board after hopefully that the planning commission would have an opportunity to provide the comments prior to a hearing so that they could be considered at a hearing. And then the select board would make any final actions.
Okay. And then it goes before the voters.
Yes.
It's gotta be in there somewhere. Yes. I'm trying to reiterate that for people
Voters get the last say.
Who are concerned and have taken part in the discussion this evening. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion, and some of the things that people want are probably not going to happen, but there is another opportunity in terms of voting in March on that, and that would be a town meeting.
Thank you.
From the floor.
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
I think.
Appreciate your time, Kevin.
Do you not want to stay for the rest of this riveting meeting?
Come on, we're almost done, Kev.
John, you have one other question?
Just a quick compliment. I just want to compliment you guys and thank you for allowing Bristolites to vote on any such changes. You didn't have to do that, and I appreciate that you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Somebody stood up in town meeting and said that we ought to be doing some of this stuff differently.
Who was that?
I just would like to say that, first of all, thank the planning commission, a lot of hours and hours and hours and months and years but I don't want us to say, oh, that March, we gotta get everything done by this certain time, because if we don't, it won't get voted in March. I'd love to have it done right. And say, well, you know what, if we have a special town meeting in May to vote these in, then so be it. But I don't wanna hurry something just to say, well, we met the deadline.
Agreed.
Because we did that in 17, I thought we hustled some things along that we probably didn't need to.
Right.
But they've been changed since then.
And they've been changed since then, so.
Right. Yeah, and I wasn't trying to infer that. I wanted to let the public know the opportunity that it's still voted.
What's
It's
the
not
timeframe?
like,
Right.
yeah, that we make we make our changes if we have any, and then that's it. These are now in part of Bristol
Right.
law. It's not,
There's
it's until it's voted on.
So yeah.
But I agree.
They have.
Want to get them right and just save all, we wanted to tweak some more stuff, but March hindered us,
Right.
and we couldn't.
Yeah, we hope to meet that deadline, but we'll see.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna wait on that. We don't have to vote on that. We're good. Thank you, everyone, for that participation. All right, I've marked up my stuff so much here. Where are we now?
Continue review of preliminary budget.
7.3, continued review of preliminary budget information if available.
Well,
Brett,
it's not.
Can you hang on a second, Valerie?
Sure.
I just want to, Brett didn't sign on until later. I just wanted him to know that we'd already taken care of the resignation and that. We did some inner business while we were waiting for 7 o'clock.
We jumped ahead.
They actually, well, yeah, department head roundtable is next.
Yeah, we didn't
Rather
do
than the
that.
budget.
Oh, I missed
We
it.
did kind of do it, nobody was on.
We did, there was
Yeah.
nobody here, but yes. Do we want to go back to department head
We saw
roundtable?
Bruce.
We've got
Yes.
two folks.
You got Bruce
Dude,
and
Bruce, Brett,
Jill already.
Oh, and Jill.
Yeah.
Oh, Jill's here too.
Yeah, all right, so why don't we start with Jill? You're on camera, so you get to go first.
I've just been hanging out, listening to all your zoning woes. I just like to listen because it often impacts what's going on with the.
29, let's go. 29, 29.
All right, ready? Water read is happening this week. If you guys want to put a note on any of your social media, remind people to unblock their touchpads on the exterior of their home if they've got snow up against them, building materials pushed against them, etc. Because we do have the option to assess fines. And it's not fun to try to do the read and have stuff in the way. And also with that, it'd be super nice to just remind people to not, when they're clearing snow, don't pile it on the hydrant near your house. Because it makes it, we do shovel them out when the snow gets deeper. But when you make it artificially deeper by piling snow on it, it's really not kind. Not too many people do it, but I do see it on occasion. And when we do send out, meaning when Sharon and the crew send out the December water bills, we'll send out the service line inventory and paper one last time. And at that point, we should also have links all set up for people to start using the Google Doc.
Great. Anything else?
That's all we got.
Great, thanks, Jill.
You're welcome.
Brett, do you have anything you want to tell us about that's going on at the fire department?
No report, he says. In the interest of time, no report.
Oh, okay, sorry, I can't.
Thank
I can't
you.
read
Thank
that.
you, Brett.
Thank you. Bruce, you're the last one up there. Do you have
Just
anything you want to tell us about?
Yeah, just want to remind everybody the parking lights are flashing on Main Street, so there is no overnight parking on Main Street tonight.
So move your vehicle.
Thank you.
It was nice to see you today, by the way. He walked by. He was on foot walking by. All right, now we can move on to number 3. Continued review of preliminary budget information, if available.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted.
We haven't taken a lip reading class yet.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in my notes that only went out this morning, so my apologies for that. I was still in the process of updating the personnel budget data, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns insurance projected allocations, the entry of the FY 2023 actuals, and then inputting the figures we now have from the draft audit of FY 22, and also creation of the individual department budget worksheets. So I made some progress today on that. And in the process of inputting the FY 23 data through June of 2023, there are still a lot of rough edges that need to be worked out. So I'm going to need to meet with Sharon and Chris and try to unravel where some of these numbers have come from, because they don't make sense. So that's a long way of saying that it's not ready tonight, but I do expect to make a significant amount of progress for next Monday.
Great.
When would we be able to see the 2022 audit?
I can send you a draft now. It's not finalized. They're waiting for us to sign off on it. We only just got it last week. And so I wanted to make sure that Chris and Sharon had a chance to glance at it in case anything that had any questions. But then I expect this week we'll send the letter back saying we're good, and we'll get the final copy.
And it's probably not likely that we would receive our 2023 audit
Before July 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably.
Okay.
I mean, can we push them to that? Say, look, this is really kind of ridiculous, don't you think?
I mean, yeah.
Well, we can push, but it also falls back on us to provide them with information that under the current situation could be challenging. And also that, as I mentioned, with I'm finding numbers in the FY23 actuals that I'm putting into the budget spreadsheet that just seem really out of whack, and we need to figure out why.
Are they waiting for stuff for us for the 2023?
I think they sent us last week a list.
Okay.
So that's the first step, is they need to send us a list. They did send a list, actually, and there's an online portal for us to begin to upload documents. So we have not started that process yet.
Okay, yeah, I just remember, I mean, a big part of the audit, or one part of the audit is unallocated funds and sort of figuring out what wasn't used and what we're able to, how we're able to use those to help the budget coming up for 2024, 2025. But of course, last year's budget, we worked with 2020, or no, 2021. And now we're working, okay.
I would hope that we could at least have what we finished out the year, not an audit, undesignated, but.
Yeah, it would be
yeah.
unaudited. It would be unaudited.
Okay, you finished out,
Unaudited,
highway
unallocated.
department finished out, you know,
Unassigned.
either over or under budget, and
Sure.
I'd like to see that at least.
But not unallocated.
Right. We'll definitely have that for FY23, which is, I'm putting that all in right now. I need to unravel certain numbers. For FY24, we'll only have through December.
Right.
I have to kind of guesstimate, but it's sometimes a useful benchmark because you're 50% of the way through, and then you can kind of compare how that stacks up with your actual expenses. But given that some expenses happen at certain times of the year, it's not
I'm not
always
sure we need 2024.
Yeah.
I think 2023 is the one that
We
would be
paid all our bills,
relevant for us.
when we finish up the year.
Right.
Yep. So
And when I spoke before, I said unallocated, it's
Unassigned.
unassigned fund, that's the new
yeah,
terminology.
undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Thank you,
No, it's
Valerie.
not undesignated anymore,
Well, we
it's
started,
unassigned.
we started with undesignated, and now the new auditors use.
They don't
unassigned.
like our
Unassigned.
verbiage. We were here before
I
them.
know.
So I expected, even though some of the numbers are wonky right now, I expect that at the bottom line, it is what it is. It's just that they were coded weird. Yeah, so hopefully by then it'll be simple math.
Nothing's ever simple.
Could my 7-year-old do it? He's pretty good at math.
Yeah.
I do it.
Can I
Come
do
on,
it?
nowadays.
Right. Is he gonna do
If
better
you
than
tell
I?
him how much money we have and how much we spent, he can tell us whether we're in trouble or not.
Smarter than a fifth grader.
That doesn't look good, Dad. Oh, gosh.
You're doing something wrong, Dad. You need to get it figured out.
I know.
Okay, love it.
We'll let him blame it all on you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Val?
Not on that.
Okay.
All right, so the next item that I have on my list here is Select Board Roundtable. Speaker,
I'm good.
Joel?
Couple of things. Valerie, are we gonna sell that generator, the old water department generator? Been sitting over there like a lawn ornament for the last year and a half, year at least.
Is it used as
No,
backup?
I don't think there was a plan to sell it. I thought, at least at the thinking at the time was that have it on hand as a backup.
I don't know if Jill can speak to that.
Yeah, Joel.
I mean, it's
We,
sitting there.
It took till like July of this year to finally get that project finished. It was a year and a half. So we had kind of held on to it. At this point, if you wish to sell it, you could certainly do so. I think it would be quite expensive to put that back in there at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they worth
I was gonna say,
anything?
is there a
Oh, yeah.
market?
Oh, it's
yeah.
a generator. It's a
It's
diesel generator. Yeah, and it runs.
Okay.
Somebody's gonna need it to charge their Tesla.
Bam.
Are you in the need for one?
No, I'm just wondering, is it gonna help our budget meetings? That's what I wanna know.
It'll
Yeah.
go
Any
it'll go
amount
back
of
to the water
Water
department.
department.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I'd say I think that's a good suggestion to look at that. If Jill feels she's not gonna need it quickly to put back in.
Well, she said
I
it's
don't
too
think you
expensive.
can,
Wouldn't put that
I don't
back
think you
in.
can at this point, cause we've changed the
Changed so much.
controllers and
Okay.
everything.
So who would be responsible for, how do you market that?
Yeah, would Val do that? Is something that that Jill would be
Well,
able
if
to
Jill can
do?
come up with the specs for it
Yeah.
and give it to us, we can probably put it
And-
out.
and what you
I'm
expect.
awful at generator specs, guys.
Yeah, it was pretty painful.
I know,
It's
I would
been-
probably just say, you know, as is,
Yeah.
or view at
Get
town
the threshold
garage
guarantee.
by
Mhm.
appointment,
Right.
and I have to say that used things seem to be, this might seem weird, but where I'm seeing them sell is Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist is kind of gone.
Yeah.
Machinery Trader is bigger than what we would need. Posting it on the town website is very dead end.
Facebook, okay.
Okay.
From Porch Farm.
Oh, no, Jill,
Do
I
you know what-
work with Kat a lot up the Richmond on our generator. I can at least get the specs off that from Eric or you and find out, give us an idea of what we should not accept or accept,
That'd be great.
okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's if you know kind of what the ballpark is, if you can get that from somebody that you know at Milton Cat, that'd be great.
Okay.
We have the specs of that particular machine from back when we worked on the specs for the new one.
We sure do.
Yeah.
What we
so
didn't do is put a
Send
qualifier
those
that
to
it
me
has a
if you would,
large
Val.
alternator.
If you would send those to me, Valerie, then I can send them to Milton Cat.
Okay, yeah, I guess the question is what kind of market value does it have that we should?
Well,
That's what
we
he's
need to
gonna
know.
find out.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
Milton Cat.
Okay,
Well, who knows? What if they have a
Townhouse.
customer looking, maybe they'll buy it from us. We
yeah, and
buy
save us the
stuff from
hassle
people all
of
the
They
time.
may, they may.
All right.
Yeah.
You have one other thing, Jill?
Yeah, and then I'll put my rec club hat on. We're working with Jill. We've had a water leak over there, but they've shut the water off, of course, in October, and, there's a master meter out by West Street that entires that whole thing, and the town has also been reading the meter for the hub for the last 6-7 years. And that, the rec club is not gonna ask for that money back, but it's like almost $1,000 where, because the water was billed twice, the water usage for the rec field and the hub. So Jill knows, we've been looking into that, and
Should be just the master meter.
Master
like
meter.
the trailer park.
like the
Well,
trailer.
it was that way at one time, and then somebody was sort of telling coming up with a number that supposedly was
Your,
for the
the rec
hub.
club.
Someone from the rec club was telling, like,
The
this
rec
is what we.
department's responsibility.
Yes, and that got,
Well-
like, it was variable, it was odd.
Well,
it was-
Sharon, I've worked with Sharon, and she's going to take Jill's readings and say, okay, you gotta get
Okay.
this much, the hub's bill was $85 for 3 months, and then they'll reimburse the rec club for it. So,
Okay.
just,
That sounds
Okay.
better than
Yeah.
somebody's number that
Now,
changed
they
every
picked out of
single.
the air.
yeah,
It
no,
was, yeah, and it varied widely at one point.
we're
so.
not sure where the leak is yet, and Jill's been, she
It's in
read
the
the
ground.
meters. Oh, it's in the ground, that's right, thank you. And she shut all the water off for the rec field, so we know, and if now it's staying constant, then we know it's on our end. It may be the water bubbler, we're not sure. So we're working it. So that's all I had.
Less than 1,000 gallons in 3 weeks doesn't insinuate a leak, so. Now.
Now, right.
Okay, Michelle, you said you're good?
I'm good.
Ian?
I'm good.
You're good. I didn't have anything for this evening. I brought up the one person that talked to me about the application, the zoning application. So that was the only thing that I had for this evening. Anything else, Valerie?
Nope, I don't think so.
Oh, I did actually have one more. I've had a few people ask me, is Bristol ever gonna reconsider asking for Mont Gas to come into town? And I went, I think it's in their hand, not in ours. I don't know what to say to them.
They asked to be
Put
out of the contract, and we granted that, so it's really up to them to come back
They don't
in.
have to
And
come
that's what
back.
I said. As far as I remember, they asked to get out of the contract and we granted it. And it's up to, the ball's in their court.
Yeah, I don't know what their focus is. A lot of the advertising that I see is all to do with heat pumps and to do with like water heaters. Heat pumps too.
They didn't get the sign on in Middlebury that they
They thought they
intended
would.
to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Huh.
Well, if they came back now, it would be a whole lot easier for them.
It's right at the town line. It's right
Well,
over
I'm
here.
just saying, I mean, they don't have to go through Act 250.
Right. So any other business correspondence reports, correspondence received?
I just want to point out that we received the final inspection or the progress report for the Eagle Park fishing platform, so that the work needs to continue for final restoration and some punch list items in the spring. We received a letter from the Department of Health. In fact, we didn't receive it, but Ted and Diane did, and the town was not copied on it. That informing them that the state statute had been changed so that town health officers, as of January 1, will no longer be responsible for doing rental property inspections, that will be turned over to the Department of Public Safety. So,
Well, and they're thrilled about that.
No, actually, that's a plus if the department.
It's a plus for us, but
Not for public safety. don't
public
want it.
safety is thrilled about
Right.
it. They
Right,
don't,
because they don't have enough people
they
as
don't
it
have the
is.
people to do it. Yeah.
right.
But in some ways, it's better because then they would be, they have a consistency
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
Everybody, yeah.
Regarding the Eagle Park, I posted photos for everyone
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
Thank you.
The gravel that leads into it, is that gonna be changed? Is that temporary? I don't see how that's accessible.
I thought they were putting planks down. I thought there was something about them putting
Okay.
planks down. Was
From
that
the-
right, Val?
That does not sound familiar to me. The gravel pathway leading from the parking lot to the ramp was not affected by the flood, so it is what it is.
It is what
It
it
was,
was.
it's only the area that was affected by the flood that has been replaced.
That's not really accessible.
I remember
That's the
walking
thing.
down there. and it was
Then we
pretty-
need to come up with something different, but
Okay.
that wasn't part of the project. The
Okay.
FEMA funded.
That's what I thought. But yeah, we should revisit that because it looks great. I think they did a really good job. There's obviously a little bit of damage on the whatever side
It's
that
on the
is.
platform or
east
is it on the
side.
walkway? I was trying to.
It's on the platform.
Okay, I was, when
Yeah.
you sent the
To the
picture.
platform, the
Correct.
trim board is
Yeah.
broke.
The side that gets the most battering, there's some cracked areas there. It seems like they're gonna replace, just in terms of that, the area in between the new concrete pour and our original platform. There's like a gap there. But yeah, it was just the accessibility part of it. It looks great. You can get down there if you have a walker or a wheelchair, but then you're in the parking lot and you need some help with that. So I think we need to look at that.
Well, related to that, today I sent off the ad for the request for proposals that Porter has initiated
Oh,
for
yes.
design for accessible features to the town
Right.
street park, Sycamore, Eagle, and Memorial Park. So that's being
Right.
published this week. And the proposals will be due January 10th. So hopefully we'll begin to see some movement in that direction.
Great.
Did Porter already have one done for Eagle Park?
It was.
Did she do a presentation?
It was just a.
It was a concept.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on the.
It was a very nice looking concept.
Concept, yes,
I was
it
like,
was.
that looks great. Are we doing that? Oh, wait. It looks so good.
When we have somebody who
I know.
donates $1 million
I know.
to our cause
It
or a
was
couple
amazing.
million.
Did the rail around the platform, has that been removed for,
Not yet. That'll have to happen in the spring.
should it come out before the spring? I mean, times get by, then the ice.
Time
goes
Well, it's
down.
not removable yet. It's not the removable
Oh.
one that,
Oh, it's not.
it's still the original railing. And so if ice takes it out, well,
I can go up on my
It's gonna come
saw.
out
I can
anyway.
go-
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
go up on
little-
my
save us
saw
a little
and
work.
come out.
I don't know, that's the preferred method.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
and plus
You
the
know-
other thing that's not ready yet is on the posts at the entrance of the pathway. We still need to install some little dooflinkies to put a gate that says closed for the season, and something to tether the removed railings to, so they don't walk away. So,
Walk away or drive away.
yeah, or somehow move away. But yeah.
I guess
so
I do
those
have
things.
one more thing then, the last
Oh
thing,
my goodness.
sorry.
Jeez,
Sidewalk. Sidewalk bid. Now's the time to get them out for spring.
I am totally aware of that, and
Okay,
yeah, I'm, to be honest with you, I've been really hoping that the Bike Ped Committee would weigh in on identifying priorities to apply for. We have the survey data that the Regional Planning Commission did, which is really phenomenal. But it's also a lot of information. And I mean, I could sit at my desk and just come up with something, but I think it would be, I would prefer to get the input from the Bike Ped Committee and their thoughts. And given that they've put a lot of energy into the whole notion of sidewalks and, you know, improving access and pedestrian facilities, I'd really, really want their input on it. But I've been.
Have you asked Chris?
I copy you every time I do. So
Okay. I'll chat with Chris.
Yeah,
Tell him to get on that.
I think we could at least put out RFPs that said we're looking for proposals to so much a foot for 5 foot wide sidewalks in the village area, so much a foot.
Well,
I realize that's a little broad.
Yeah.
We should have the linear footage though that we can give them, because my price for 100 feet is gonna be way different than my price for 1,000 feet.
Right.
Well, also too, I prefer to include photographs of the project area so that people who might not be nearby can see the conditions and evaluate some of the impediments or some of the things they have to work around that they might have to, you know, factor into their cost. So, and the survey that the Regional Planning Commission did includes a lot of photographs in their database. So that's really fantastic.
How about at least putting the one up Airport Drive out to RFP? We know we've applied for the grant. We don't know if we're gonna get it. Could we at least put that one out?
I would wait till we got the grant, partly because.
Yeah, why would you put something out that you don't have the money to do?
Right, and
I would
also.
be very upset if I took the time to bid it and then you decide, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
You won't get me to bid
Sorry.
again.
Just kidding.
Yeah, and also it costs money to publish
I'm gonna jump about
RFPs.
this high if we put these out in May. I'm gonna jump about this high.
You
Val,
can't jump that high.
If we're gonna put them out in May. That's all I'm saying is we skipped 2 years not doing sidewalks, or at least 1 year. And you get a better price in January than you will in May. The guys will be happy.
You're right to bring it up, Joel, but.
No, I've been prodding Chris, he'll tell you that I've been nagging at him, and I asked if it was gonna be on their agenda from the last meeting, and they said no, but they'll try to put it on this coming agenda. And part of their issue, of course, as Ian has pointed out, is that they haven't had the membership to be able to hold meetings. So I understand that that's part of it, but I've been letting them know that this is a high priority, that now's the window to get this out to bid.
All right, I'll nudge him. I guess for me, I have one thing, sorry. Just the VOREC. VOREC will go in, I think Frida, if she hasn't already submitted, it'll be submitted. Well, maybe today it was submitted. What's our deadline? I guess it's the 15th, but we were gonna submit a couple of days early.
Yeah.
Were there any major changes? I think the amount went up a little bit than what was originally approved by the select board.
I'm sorry, Ian, what are you talking about?
It's VOREC, yeah.
The VOREC grant.
Oh,
It's the
I'm
outdoor
sorry.
recreation grant.
Thank you.
Oh.
I didn't know.
It was
you were
brought
I thought he was
before
talking
us,
about
I think last year,
internet or
maybe the week
something.
before, and it was just
Right.
approving a certain
Webpage.
amount. It's gone beyond that a
Right.
little bit.
Got it.
But it's not non-matching,
match, yeah.
so, and so that'll be submitted, so hopefully we'll do well. I just want to keep the public aware that we're submitting that, and hopefully third time's a charm.
Yeah, over $300,000. And on Friday, we submitted the one for the Airport Drive sidewalk for $300,000. Total project cost, the actual grant would be $240 if awarded.
Which is great. I mean, you got good school support for
And
that.
that's split with the school district.
The matching.
Yeah, and even though, as I was putting the application together and going through a lot of the documentation, I had represented that it was 50-50, but it's really a little bit, not quite so 50-50. It's a little bit more here, a little bit less there, but the ballpark. We'll work it out.
No, it's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought it was a pretty strong application.
Great, okay.
Motion adjourned.
Well, there was one other
Oh.
thing Joel reminded me of, was there's the letter that came in from a resident about the compassionate justice. Is that something we wanted to discuss here?
Oh, yes.
That we decided. Put
Yes.
that in public. I just think we gotta let the court.
We all
Let the
got
system
a
stay right at it.
letter separately, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, we all got a letter separately.
But I don't know,
My heart goes out to that family, both sides, but
yeah, I don't know if we're in a position to comment on that, especially with what the letter was requesting of us. I don't think it's our place to do that, or
I don't see where we have any
our
jurisdiction
purview,
over it.
yeah.
We don't have any pull.
Bruce, have you seen this letter? Do you know what we're talking about?
I saw the email, but I didn't read the entire letter, sorry.
It's okay.
I just didn't have time.
No, but are you on board with us saying that there's nothing that we can do?
No, that's a correct statement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
Sean.
Good night.
Bruce.
Bruce, give me a ring tomorrow sometime. Oh, so anyway, he jumped out. I'll call him tomorrow.